I think the meaning of life is just to live as best as you can. I think, people are always striving, and that's good. It's to have, we have to do certain things. And everyone has certain ambitions, whether they're large or small, and that's great. But I don't think we have to think we need to pay a price for being alive. I think life is incredible, and it's a gift, and we should live it, and also as wonderfully as possible. I think nobody should feel guilty about whatever they're doing in life, thinking they should, have done this or that. Did they live? Did they love? Did they enjoy what they were doing? Did they, experience wonderful memories? I think that's the whole point of being alive. And it's different for everybody, of course, but I think people, maybe get to the end of their life, and I would hate them to think, I didn't do enough, or I didn't earn my time on the planet, or something like that, because no, they were alive. I just wished it could be everyone could have their best and most, wonderful life.
Hi, I'm Patrick Parker, and you're listening to the Becoming Who You Truly Are podcast, a show that helps us all live more authentic lives. This week's guest is Siân Lloyd Pennell, who's the writer behind the viral YouTube channel called The Honest Guys. With over 1.2 million subscribers and over 500 million views at the time of this recording, it's safe to say that Siân and her cohort at The Honest Guys have deeply impacted the world through the messages in their meditation videos. Personally, I found The Honest Guys during March 2020, which, as you may remember, was the middle of a worldwide COVID lockdown. Like many people, I was really struggling with the uncertainty of what was happening in the world at the time, and finding these wonderful meditation videos really helped me to relax, find some peace amid chaos, and come back home to myself. The Honest Guys have taught me mindfulness techniques that have increased my focus, helped me sleep better, and helped me respond to stress differently than the natural human instincts we all have. Therefore, it was a real delight to speak with Siân Lloyd Pennell over the phone about a year ago, and to use that recorded conversation as part of today's episode. In this episode, Siân talks about how mindfulness can teach us how to watch the universe unfurl before us, how to have more inner peace, and how to deal with the inevitable uncertainties that life brings all of us. And I can only imagine that by the end of this hour, Siân's story is going to inspire us all that if we can just relax and breathe into who we truly are, that we might just find the meaning of life. At the beginning of my phone call with Siân, I decided to put first things first, and I asked her, hey, Siân, just exactly how did the Honest Guys get started? What's your origin story? Here's what she had to say.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Nice to be here. Well, actually, we put a podcast up on our channel last week, I think, which was, we told, the boys, Kev and Rick, explained how it began, because they started on their own, and what they were generally doing was making videos about tips for life, like life hacks or spiritual, also practical. And what they were going to do was, test them and see how they worked out and give their honest opinion. But what happened was they were looking at courses where that they could join, and then they were going to do the course and say, did it help them at the end? But there was all these copyright issues, so they couldn't do that. And we were all at the time suffering quite highly from anxiety, stress, things like irritable bowel syndrome, insomnia. So I think it came up on an advert on the computer for some guided meditations, because there was nothing like that on YouTube at the time. And they were quite expensive, so we all chipped in and bought them, and we started to use them. And they helped us so much that after about a year, we thought, could we actually do this ourselves and put it out on YouTube so that it's just people can watch it for free? Because we know that a lot of people who really, really need help, can't, in some places they can't afford it, the courses, or to either sometimes see a doctor, or they, for whatever reason, or they might be have mobility issues or such bad panic attacks that they just can't get out and do anything. So we thought, well, it might help. It might help people, because it helped us. It might help them relax and sleep And it's so important to have some relaxation, because I've been in such dire panic attacks that I thought I was dying, and actually Rick was the same, and he ended up in hospital. You know, you do think your life's coming to an end, and it's not funny at the time, but even if you can have like 5-10 minutes or a good sleep, and you can, all that stress, you can just dial it down, it's priceless, really. So that's how we started. And they asked me one day, they said, could you write something like this? And I said, yeah, I'm sure I can try, you know, because I think people respond to the same kind of things that help them relax, like ambient sound or quiet music or gentle voices or a nice sort of gentle story. And all of those things help. It doesn't matter where you live in the world or who you are, you're probably going to respond to that same thing. So that was where it all began, really.
After Siân finished telling me the wonderful story of how she and her two friends started the Honest Guys and built it into what it is today, I realized that there was one more part of the origin story that I needed, and that was Siân's individual origin story. So I went ahead and asked Siân, hey, what was your childhood like, and how did those formative experiences shape your journey in creative writing and meditation and mindfulness?
Well, that started when I was, born, really, because my family, we lived in a large extended family in the country, in the county of Oxfordshire in England. And it was a very, very quiet and rural, but it was absolutely idyllic in many ways. Now, my grandmother, and specifically one of my uncles, they were religious, but they were more spiritual. They were, and very kind, and it was all about love to them, you know? So I used to go off on walks when I was like 5-6 years old on my own, just wandering around the fields in the woods. And to me, the fact that there was reality and there was also a kind of greater spiritual realm around and happening at the same time was something I felt very strongly when I was young. And of course, then you get older and then life starts hitting you. And but you don't forget, but life gets in the way, I think. And but I always wrote because I found it was like a refuge from things that happened after I left that family unit. And it also, I thought it was almost like a superpower to have ideas and you wrote them and you could see this story coming alive in front of your eyes. It was only for me. I didn't ever intend to write for publication or to be a novelist, but it was something that helped me process things that were going on. So it's been something that my kind of spirituality has kind of fed into it, but it's also produced it. It's like like the infinity symbol. The more I write, the more you tend to kind of learn, I think.
After Siân finished telling me about her childhood, we kind of digressed down a rabbit hole into creativity and what is creativity and deep truths and all sorts of other things. And here's just a little excerpt of that part of our conversation together.
Okay, you did ask about deep truths that you said you found in some of the meditations, and I'm trying to explain it. I'm really much better at writing something than I am at talking about it. But I think that you can feel these truths in many different things. Some people find them in films or music, or like when Handel was composing the Hallelujah chorus, and he said, I thought I saw the gate of heaven open and the face of God himself, or something like that. Because he was in the kind of, what he was doing, he was creating something, but it was without his ego.
And I love this next part of the conversation where Siân shares the intention that she and the other two members of the Honest Guys put into each and every video that they make for us.
When you write something with the intention of it helping someone, or you're kind of letting something in that isn't you, and anyone can do that. It's just a matter of, because we wanted to make all the meditations that we make with a sense of giving out to people and care for them. We want them to feel cared for. We want them to think that we are thinking about them when we write it and when we create them, which is what we do. So when we do it, we're not so much thinking about ourselves. We're sending out like positive thoughts, really, if you want to put it like that. But when your ego is not in the way, it can allow these, I think, what you call deep truths to come through, and they end up in the script, and they end up in the way Rick narrates them. And hopefully that it does come across to some people, but it's not unique to, say, us or to anybody, because that can come through anyone. You can find it in nature, you can find it in a TV series, you can find it in a book, anywhere really. It's so strange. It is there, but it has to have the kind of space to come through, if that makes any sense. We don't think we're anything special. We're just normal people because we're still working through like our lives, and we have to keep going with our journeys. But it's the intention of wanting to help. And when you're thinking of helping other people, you're not thinking of yourself. So that gives some space in what you create. It's just like somebody creating a nice meal for somebody else, and it's done with love. And so, they're not thinking about them, but the intention, the love, I think, shows. And that's what we want to put out. So it feels to me when I write that I'm somewhere off to the side and the words just come. And I'm thinking, I want this to help people. I mean, it won't help everybody, else we would be miracle workers. But I think the intention hopefully gives room for a truth that's greater than us and anybody, but it's not anything special.
And I love these final thoughts on creativity that Siân shared about how deep truth is all around us and is constantly trying to inspire us to pay attention, to be mindful, and to notice those deep truths and bring it out for others in a way that they can understand.
You can find it all across like YouTube. And when we finished, I'll actually send you a link to a video from a man who did something similar years ago. But it made me so uplifted and actually tearful that I don't know why it's not really famous. So if you don't mind, I'll send you a link to that. But like I said, it's all over the place. It's just you have to be sort of open to it, I think, and aware that it's around, and also know that it's always there. Sometimes it's like punching a hole in reality, which you can feel that life is so heavy, it's so heavy for us and it's so difficult, but there is something else, and it's just trying to, connect with it. And certainly if you're very depressed or anxious or grieving or you're ill, it's really, really difficult, but it is there. It can be reached. It's habit as well, but I always find that, anybody who writes will come up against like writer's block or blockages sometimes. Sometimes you just don't want to write. But what I do is you sit down and you just do it. Do it for 10 minutes and then the block will break and it starts to flow. And I don't feel that I'm writing so much as I feel like I'm in the place that I'm writing about. And then that you're in the zone sort of thing. But it's just habit. I just mentally make sure I start to work, and then the inspiration comes. If I was waiting for the inspiration, it would probably take a lot longer, but you have to chase it. Everyone can be creative. A lot of the time it's simply time, because so many people have got their noses to the grindstone. I think if they had the time, you'd find so many people who would want to create art, learn music, act, sculpt, become great cooks or decorate houses or anything you can think of if they have the time. Because creation is simply bringing something forth into the world that wasn't there before from you, from your work, mental or physical, both. And usually people, I expect you've seen with children how imaginative they are, and they will play games for hours with just nothing really. They'll just have a box, or they'll pretend that a corner of the garden is somewhere wild and remote where they're having an adventure. And it's great to see it. But when we get older, we're compressed into, we have to work, you have to work so many hours, and then you must probably hopefully sleep for so many hours, and you're trying to compress being creative into a tiny amount of time. But I think most people are bursting with creativity if they could only have the time to do it and not worry about money.
Now, as you all know by now, normally when I interview a podcast guest, I ask them about the 3 major turning points in their life where a person, place, or thing changed their life story and helped them find a trajectory that was a little bit more true and authentic to who they truly were. But for this interview, I took a little bit of a different tack. And since I'm so familiar with the meditation tapes that Siân has written for it, I decided to ask Siân about my 3 favorite excerpts from her meditation scripts, and to ask her about the story behind those scripts and what the inspiration was behind the scripts. Of course, this inevitably led to Siân sharing details about her life that helped her become more of who she truly is. The first meditation video, which I asked Siân about, and which you can find a link to right up here above my head, instructs the listener to watch the universe unfurl before you, and remember that no matter what you were taught, you are not an insignificant life form on a lonely planet in the backwaters of the Milky Way. You are part of the universe that has taken form, that thinks and experiences life. Remember this: you are infinite and you have the power to live your dreams. Stars died in the ancient ages so that you could live. You have a mind that observes, and that by observing, creates. You are far, far greater than you believe. Now, when I hear those lines, I hear something that is deeply true, that resonates deep within my being, but which is so easy to forget on a daily basis when I'm going around doing what I need to do to pay bills and live the realities of life. So I asked Siân, what exactly was the origin story behind this beautiful script, which just never ceases to inspire me? Here's what she had to say.
Basically, we've read, all like people like Eckhart Tolle, Greg Braden, and Neville Goddard, all these people, and so you tend to remember things from different authors. But this one I cannot remember, but somebody will, I'm sure, because the theory they were actually positing was that over billions of years, the universe is becoming self-aware. And so every single life on it contributes to that, to its becoming, because the universe is so immeasurably, impossibly vast. It can't feel like a human being, and it can't experience pain or love or gentleness or anything, any of the spectrum of emotions, because it is that vast. So it needs people to do that for it, and also animals, everything, every living organism. And when I heard that gave me this enormous goosebumps as well. And I thought, I absolutely love that theory. I mean, who knows if it's true? That it's so vast you can't possibly prove it ever, really. But I just love the idea that everything is so connected and contributing to something immeasurably huge and vast, like a huge overmind that is the universe, but we are so important that it's not like you in the end become just like part of the Borg in Star Trek, it's nothing like that. It's that you are always an individual, but you are also part of this vast, huge whole, the universe that is constantly growing and eventually becomes one. Now, where that came from, it's one of those books, and I don't know, but I read that and I thought it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever read for a long time. And I thought, I do believe that there's something there that really resonates with me, and it makes me feel not only humble, but completely forever protected in a way. So that's where that came from. And I didn't consciously think about that when I was writing it, but it just came into the meditation, because it was obviously like in my subconscious then sort of, and I thought, yes, this has to come, because maybe other people will feel that, because so many people are so helpless, and and I feel helpless because I can't help everybody as well, but they're so much more than helpless little specks, and they're all so important, and so that's what I wanted to get across.
Before we went to the second turning point, Siân and I digressed a little bit, as creative people often do. And we talked about the idea of embracing the mystery. I shared with Siân how the most crystal clear I've ever been in my life was times that I was close to death. For example, when I was in a near-death experience in a car crash back in 2017, and also when my friend died in 2020. I told her that it's really hard for me to stay in that place of deep truth that near-death experiences brings, but it's those moments that make me aware that something bigger than the physical realm exists.
Well, actually, yeah, I love the idea of embracing the mystery. But, sometimes I think people can have these illuminated moments when they are absolutely sure that there's an answer, and for a moment they understand everything. But unfortunately, because we're tied into the physical brain, it feels like our brain's going to explode if we dwell on it. But I think that there is a beauty in the mystery of it, and I don't think anyone on earth ever is going to have a definitive answer, because unless it happens to us personally, whatever anybody produced or showed us, and with whatever proof, we wouldn't believe it, because we need to experience that for ourselves. So, yeah, I would say the answers are there, I think, but we might not know them in this life, but you may get glimpses of that knowledge. And I've certainly spoken to people who have, and I mean, once or twice I had that kind of very spiritual, powerful experience, but I still don't know, but I know what I felt at the time, but I still couldn't say what it was. I don't think you could live in that moment, though, could you? Because you wouldn't want to do anything else except be in that moment, which is why I think it's important to live. I know it's hard, but you do have to keep going, because if you understood everything, you had that revelation, and you understood everything, suddenly everything, you would just stand there with your mouth open forever. You wouldn't be able to do anything. So I think that's why we only get glimpses, because we'd be just all standing there staring up at the sky going, wow. And we can't do that.
The next turning point, or in this case, video that I asked Siân about, was her video on inner peace. Personally, I think of peace as the feeling of being at home in my body, of feeling comfortable in my own skin, and just being able to be still and exhale. And one of the most powerful Honest Guys recordings that I've heard thus far is their video on inner peace. In that video, Siân wrote that stress seems to be endemic in the world of today. Many of us suffer from stress and worry and view it as a normal part of our lives. But left unchecked, stress is bad for body and for mind. No one can add a single good moment to their life from worrying, and yet the majority of us worry all the time. Meditation, relaxing for just a moment, can help us reduce stress and become more creative and effective. We have found that rather than a vast external change, regular meditation brings subtle but powerful inner changes, so that reactions to events in our lives are less extreme and we cope with them better. There seems to be a deep peace, like a still pool of water, deep within us that we can subconsciously drink from, allowing us to view things with greater calmness. Here's what Siân had to say about the origin story behind that video.
Yeah, that was from personal experience. And that has happened to me when I was in an absolutely terrible state, and experienced sudden and immense peace. And I found that after that time, and that happened when I was in my 20s, so it was a long time ago, But after that, it was never quite as bad, anything, that this seemed to always, that there was a deep peace. But sometimes you have to go really deep to touch that. And the best way to do it for anybody is to start to relax, and to relax more, and to sort of go down and down until they're underneath. Because the anxiety is, to me, like a very stormy sea, and we're all on it. When you start going under it, and it gets calmer and quieter and underneath the surface of the ocean, that I think it is always there. We just have to sort of be led down to be able to touch that, because it is there. And any time that because I do deep meditation, we all do sort of make sure we do it in the week, alongside sort of smaller segments. But once you get into that particular, it seems that it's this universal stillness, which is underneath all the storm and the worry and the anxiety and everything. And I just wanted to sort of try and help people to reach that, to know that it was there, really, and to be able to go down to it, where you feel so peaceful. It was, when I experienced it, it was out of the blue, and I hope you don't mind me, because it might help people if they hear this. I was in an absolutely terrible state. It was worse than a panic attack. But I also was waiting for a lift to go to work, and I was agoraphobic about going to work, and I was also claustrophobic about going in the car that was going to pick me up. And I'd also had a violent experience perpetrated against me a couple of years prior to that, which I'd never got. I won't go into it, but hadn't dealt with it really. And I was in such a terrible state, waiting at home on my own. But I wanted to start screaming and crying, but I put all my makeup on to go to work, and I wouldn't, in case I looked like a mess. So all this was inside, and I literally screamed, but I screamed silently, "Please help me." And within less than a second, this absolutely unreal and impossible peace just descended on me. And it was so remarkable that I just couldn't believe it. And I thought then I had a kind of vision of a bomb going off, and I wouldn't even have been scared of it, because I knew I was protected. It was a complete protection, and it was complete, everything was going to be all right. And I even tried to think about the thoughts I'd been having prior to this that were causing me such panic and grief and terror. And I recognised that the thoughts were there, but I couldn't feel them. I couldn't feel the fear. I couldn't feel anything except this overwhelming and otherworldly protection that I was going to be completely all right. So, but the car came, I got in the car, I went to work, and this lasted all day until I got home. And it only very slowly sort of ebbed away. But after that, nothing ever felt quite as awful again, no matter how bad things got. I was aware of this sort of deep peace that was underneath. But, I have to work to get to it. I have to meditate. I can't just plug into it. But because that was a gift. It was something anyway, when I was in a really terrible way. But to get back to that now, but, so I was nobody to feel that. I was just anybody you could ever meet. But something happened, and it is there. And when I'm in deep meditation, I'm aware that it's there. But I think everyone can have it. It's just there for everybody. That was another sort of thought. It was such huge, it was so big that it could encompass the world and leave room to spare. It wasn't just for me, it was just always there, except you had to be in the right or the wrong place, I suppose, to experience it. So what I was doing was harking back to that and thinking, everybody, this is there for everybody. This probably is what they meant in the Bible when they talked about the peace of God that passeth all understanding. Because, my nan used to talk about that, and she'd felt it herself. So I thought, yes, that must be what it is. It's that sort of, well, it was nothing human anyway, and I wasn't on any drugs or drink or anything. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning, and something was just given to me. And I'm not a particularly religious person myself, but I thought, this is there for everybody. This is, this is there, and I want to try and lead people to it. It just means that you have to be taught, relax into it. I'm afraid I can't give it to somebody just like a plug and play, but I can hopefully help people to move towards it.
After Siân finished telling me the story of how she wrote the Inner Peace script and the inspiration behind it, I shared with her that I feel like my creativity and my authenticity is absolutely allergic to stress. And I asked her, Siân, do you see creativity and stress as mutually exclusive?
Yes, you have to be relax back into it, if you like. It's like you said about your wonderful childhood. And I don't know about you, but when I am meditating or perhaps listening to some beautiful ambient sound or something, it can remind you so much of that time. You can feel like the child you were then, with all that, exactly how you were. And that's another thing that I do. It's and also, try to help people to sort of maybe remember good times, is taking them back to memories of when the world was more simple for them. And, you didn't have to worry so much, hopefully.
After asking Siân about the relationship between creativity and stress, I then went down yet another rabbit hole when I brought up the idea of the intuitive introvert by Carl Jung. The intuitive introvert is one of Jung's 16 personality types, and he says that only about 2 to 3% of the entire human population is the intuitive introvert. I mentioned to Siân that based on, the type of scripts that she's been writing for the Honest Guys, that I feel like perhaps she might be an intuitive introvert, and I certainly see myself that way. Then I proceeded to read Jung's description of the intuitive introvert so Siân could tell me whether or not she sees herself that way and what she thinks about this idea of this archetype in the human psyche. So here's what Jung has to say about the intuitive introvert. He states that the intuitive introvert has a hard time making a go of it in life. Intuitive introverts are often misunderstood due to their highly sensitive nature. Therefore, they tend to withhold their insights into the deeper, non-material realm of existence, because to share those insights would make them even more alienated from their peers. However, Jung goes on to say that if the intuitive introvert can find a way to articulate the deep truths they are privy to, then they become the poets, the sages, and the prophets of society. So I asked Siân, do Carl Jung's thoughts on the intuitive introvert resonate with you? And if so, how?
Well, I've never really thought of that, but it makes a lot of sense. I know, like, all of us at THG tend to be... The thing is, when you say introverted, a lot of people think you mean very shy, but it's not that. Introversion isn't necessarily being shy. It's just being quite reserved. And also, you want quiet, I think, quite often to digest things. But so maybe all of us, Rick and me, are quite like that. I don't know that I'm wise. I don't know that I'm a wise person. Because it's just so simple that I do find life hard, reality quite hard, because I'm very, very quiet. And so I've often suffered from like agoraphobia or claustrophobia or being around people, not that I don't hate people. It's just that it's the busyness, the noise, and then I'd say it's not me. It's coming through me, but it's not me, because I'm just a normal person, and I'm definitely not wise. I mean, I struggle as much as the next people, but if it does, then it's because, well, it's not me, but it's coming through me, if you see what I mean.
After Siân finished answering about whether or not she's an intuitive introvert, she turned the tables and asked me, am I an intuitive introvert? Well, I went ahead and told her my thoughts about my personality and why I think I'm an intuitive introvert. And I've already shared so many of those ideas in other videos in this podcast and on my main channel, the travel channel. So I don't think that I need to recant those for you in this episode. But after we finished talking about the intuitive introvert archetype, we somehow stumbled onto the topic of uncertainty. And I told Siân, a scary part of becoming who you truly are is to step out into the unknown and in order to go deeper into the experience of life. Entering the unknown almost always includes fear, whether it is leaving a job to follow a calling, becoming a parent, or deciding to work with your emotions in a new way. For example, by subscribing to The Honest Guys and listening to their videos. So the question that I had for Siân was, could you share with us your thoughts on fear, as well as any insights you have on the faith required to move past fear and go deeper into one's life journey?
I tell you what, I've probably been a fearful person since I left that lovely home in the country. And I battle with fear nearly all the time, but I also have a really deep faith. And it's not particularly one thing, but it is that everything will be all right at some point. It might be a universal level, because in the last few years, what with COVID, we've all seen a lot of people ill. We've known people who have died. I lost 3 members of my family, including my mum, in the last couple of years. It's easy to be frightened and not to want to move because you're frightened of what's going to happen. But it's going to happen anyway. So you might as well, walk into it. What's that saying? My nan always said it. She used to quote from the Bible and from poetry and Shakespeare all the time. And I remember it. She used to say, be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid. She had that sort of attitude as well, charge into it. But it's going to happen anyway. And if by sitting down and not doing anything and being afraid, you're not going to get away from it. But at least if you are active, you might have a chance to shape your future in some way. I'd have to look it up and tell you where it's from. But, my nan was very remarkable woman and very bold, actually. So, I remembered it. And every time I've thought, because sometimes it can just be for people, it's a challenge that is very personal. And even they might think very small because, sometimes Rick, for instance, gets agoraphobic and he doesn't want to go outside. And so for him, he will set himself a challenge of just walking down the street to a certain point, a letterbox or a lamppost. So, when I say be bold, I don't, it can be a huge thing. It can be somebody going for a job maybe that they don't have any expectation of getting, or like you did, moving all the way from the US to Norway. Or it can be a small challenge, but it still requires the same amount of, the courage. So, I mean, it can be a rocky journey when you decide to be active, to be proactive in your own life, especially if you're scared. But it will always pay dividends mentally, physically, and spiritually, I think. But yes, it's tapping into it. And I think everybody can. You can only do it if you actively reach for it, though. I mean, otherwise, not taking as much control over your own life as you can is like sort of sitting there when there's an avalanche coming and thinking, well, I'm not going to do anything. Well, something is going to happen to you. So whatever you do, so go forward. And it's there is always, like my grandmother quoted, I think there always is something that helps you. I mean, it can come in the guise of other people, or it can be luck, things that happen to you that you didn't expect, or it can be, mental, that you suddenly you feel better, that you feel more confident, that you feel more at ease with yourself. But it's always something, and it's quite amazing. I've seen it happen to other people, and it makes me shake my head and smile because it's a really amazing thing.
Once again, Siân turned the tables on me and asked me about some of the fears in my life that I've had to overcome to become more of who I truly am. For example, what was it like for me to move to Norway? Well, I actually have a video planned on that forthcoming, so I won't answer this question now, but if you're interested in seeing my answer, click the subscribe button and you can see when that video is uploaded. Finally, we ended the conversation by me very playfully asking Siân, hey, just by the way, do you happen to know what the meaning of life is? And she actually had a pretty dang good answer.
I think the meaning of life is just to live as best as you can. I think, people are always striving, and that's good. It's to have, we have to do certain things. And everyone has certain ambitions, whether they're large or small, and that's great. But I don't think we have to think we need to pay a price for being alive. I think life is incredible, and it's a gift, and we should live it, and also as wonderfully as possible. So if I actually get any more insights, I'll definitely email you and tell you. But the older I get, I think nobody should feel guilty about whatever they're doing in life, thinking they should, have done this or that. Did they live? Did they love? Did they enjoy what they were doing? Did they, experience wonderful memories? I think that's the whole point of being alive. And it's different for everybody, of course, but I think people, maybe get to the end of their life, and I would hate them to think I didn't do enough, or I didn't earn my time on the planet or something like that, because no, they were alive. I just wished it could be everyone could have their best and most, wonderful life.
Well, on that powerful note, it's time to end this week's podcast episode with the wise and wonderful Siân Lloyd Pennell of The Honest Guys. If you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and click subscribe and smash the like button on this video, and head on over to The Honest Guys channel, where you can find all sorts of wonderful videos on how to relax into more of who you truly are. If you'd like to support this channel further, you can click on the Patreon link in the description box below this video, and while supplies last, I'll send you a free Audible version of my book, Becoming Who You Truly Are, with your subscription. As always, thank you for watching, and until we see each other again, I wish you nothing but the best in your life's journey to becoming all that you truly are.